In the cryptocurrency community, there are two groups. Those that invest their hard-earned money and those that try to destroy it. But one man exists whose sole purpose is to bring justice to the crypto world.
Hey, what's up, XRP community? I'm John Deaton, and I challenge anyone to find me a community in the crypto world that has put up with more FUD and more bullshit than the XRP community. In fact, if you've held XRP for the last 3 years, you have literally been through hell and back. So there's no other community that deserves a little bit of satisfaction, something to look forward to. So what I've decided to do is bring the trial of the century to you. What I'm going to do is give small previews of what the case is going to be about and what the case is going to look like. And today's video is what our friend Clayton has to look forward to when he steps into the courtroom at the trial. Now, this is just a snippet. I have so much more material to work with this clown, but here's a little taste. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Your Honor, I call Clayton to the stand.
Thanks for being here.
Mr. Clayton, tell this jury what your job was supposed to be while you were the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Look, we're always concerned that there are areas where investors are being exploited, paying too much, being defrauded. That's our job, and we're looking for that everywhere, whether it's old frauds, pump and dump in the penny stock area, or some of the frauds we're seeing in today's ICO market. Every woman and man at the SEC comes to work every day thinking about our Main Street investors and how to protect them.
Mr. Clayton, I'm glad that you brought up fraud and the fact that fraud is the #1 concern that you, as chairman of the Securities Exchange Commission, has in protecting investors. And it's a matter of fact, is it not, that you investigated Ripple and these two executives, and that investigation took a span of over 8 years. And in 8 years of an investigation, the SEC could not find any evidence of fraud. Isn't that the truth?
If it's a security, we're regulating it.
Mr. Clayton, that's not the question that I asked you. The question that I asked you was very specific. If the SEC had uncovered one scintilla of proof that these executives or this company engaged in fraud or fraudulent-like behavior, you would have charged them with fraud, wouldn't you?
If it's a security, we're regulating it.
Mr. Clayton, you just literally said that your #1 job as chairman of the SEC was to prevent fraud. And the bottom line is that there was no fraud alleged by the SEC against these executives or this company.
If it's a security, we're regulating it.
Okay, Mr. Clayton, let me ask you this. While you were chairman of the SEC, you went after companies that did engage in fraud, and you went after companies in the digital asset space that was non-compliant. In fact, it's referred to as the 2017 ICO prosecutions, initial coin offering. In 2017, you brought numerous cases against companies in the digital asset space that engaged in fraud and that were non-compliant. But isn't it a fact that you did not bring a case against Ripple or these executives? Go ahead. So in 2017, when you are prosecuting all these digital asset companies, You didn't bring a case against Ripple. Now, you knew that Ripple existed, right? And you knew that XRP was either the second or the third largest cryptocurrency in the world during the time that these 2017 ICO prosecutions were taking place, didn't you? But you didn't bring a case then, did you?
If it's a security.
Bottom line, at the time of the most aggressive prosecutions of digital assets, the SEC did not go after the co-founder of Ripple, Mr. Chris Larsen, or its CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, or the company Ripple. In fact, let's play the tape.
The classic definition of a security, you invest in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit. You're saying the way you look at most ICOs, they are securities.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Clayton, in that interview on CNBC with Bob Pisani, he told you that there was confusion in the marketplace. He told you he talked to people in the ICO industry and they were confused. In fact, he used the word stymied. In other words, investors, companies, innovation was stymied because the SEC did not give clarity. Well, Mr. Clayton, let's see what you said to Mr. Pisani.
You brought up ICOs. Let me go to this area. Interest in Bitcoin is off the charts by our viewers. Not since the 2000 area have I seen such interest. Tell us a little bit more about what you're planning to do with Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchain this year. You brought up ICOs. I talked to my ICO friends, people who are interested in this, and they say, we're stymied. We don't know what the SEC is planning to do. Can you tell us whether ICOs are definitely securities, or are you going to carve out some exceptions, and when are you going to make a clear ruling and decision on this?
Okay, so there's a lot in that area. Let me start with the technology, distributed ledger technology. Incredible promise. It can drive efficiencies not only in the financial markets, but in a lot of markets. Fine. Two areas in the financial markets where distributed ledger technology has come to the fore. Cryptocurrencies. These are replacements for sovereign currencies, replace the dollar, the yen, the euro with Bitcoin. That type of currency is not a security. Let me turn to what's a security. A token, a digital asset, where I give you my money and you go off and make a venture. You have some company you want to start or something you want, and in return for me giving you my money, you say, you know what, I'm going to give you a return. Or you can get a return in the secondary market by selling your token to somebody. That is a security, and we regulate that. We regulate the offering of that security, and we regulate the trading of that security. And that's our job, and we've been doing it for a long time.
Mr. Clayton, you do realize that your answer makes absolutely no sense. You do realize that in the very same answer to Mr. Pisani, you contradict yourself. You say that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, a store of value or a payment, that those are currencies that substitute sovereign currencies like the peso or the euro or the dollar. Then you turn around and you say, but if you get a digital asset and it's traded in the secondary markets, that somehow is a security. Sir, you realize Bitcoin is traded in secondary markets, right? And you realize that XRP is a store of value, just like Bitcoin. And you realize that XRP gets paid to people as a payroll currency in Japan, in Africa, in the United Arab Emirates, and in Mexico, which I believe is the definition of a currency. Matter of fact, Bob Pisani himself in the interview realized that you were making no sense, and he said, we need clarity. The industry needs clarity. Isn't that a fact? Let's play the tape.
Are you planning now to make a clear statement on that? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion about whether anybody is going to get approved or not.
Bob, I hope I just did. If it's a security, we're regulating it.
The issue is, what is a security? But your answer to what is a security is, if it's a security, we will regulate it. If you say that one more time, I might have to walk over and slap the shit out of you. And Mr. Clayton, what is it with that shitty grin on your face?
You on drugs?
No, Judge. Whether he's on drugs or not, I don't know. But I may need some if I have to keep dealing with this fool. Mr. Clayton, a few minutes ago, I mentioned XRP in Mexico and in Japan and the UAE. Let me ask you this question. You do realize that the United States is behind other countries when it comes to the digital asset space. You realize that the United States is suppressing innovation when compared to other countries in the world. You do realize that, right?
We've been doing this for a long time, and we've built a $19 trillion economy, a securities market that's the envy of the world, following these rules. If you have an ICO or a stock and you want to sell it in a private placement, follow the private placement rules. There's no secondary trading. You know, you have to do that. If you want to do an IPO with a token, come see us. File financial statements, file disclosure, take the responsibility our laws require, and we're happy to help you do that public offering.
Mr. Clayton, did you just say that the United States is the envy of the world when it comes to securities? Did you literally just say that the rest of the world is in envy of the United States because of our securities market? Did I hear that correctly? And Mr. Clayton, you keep bringing up secondary markets, as though if a digital asset is traded in the secondary markets, it somehow transforms itself into a security. I've already mentioned that Bitcoin is traded in security markets. You're aware that Ethereum is traded in security markets. Mr. Clayton, do you know the difference between a commodity and a security? Ever hear of Chris Giancarlo? You know, the guy that's in charge of the digital dollar for the United States government? The guy that used to be head of the Commodities Future Trade Commission? You are aware that Mr. Giancarlo has said, being an expert in commodities, that XRP is in fact a commodity. And you are aware that other commodities such as gold and silver, soybeans, wheat are traded in secondary markets. Yet, they are not securities, they are commodities. You know the difference. You know the difference, right? Mr. Clayton, you directed the most significant enforcement action in modern history at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And you directed it to be filed on your last day of work. But before that, 2 years before you filed suit against Ripple on your last day, you were specifically asked by the CNBC reporter about altcoins. And not just altcoins, you were asked specifically about XRP and Ethereum. Let's see what your answer was.
What about altcoins? We have discussed Bitcoin, but there are other altcoins out there. There is Ether, for example. There is Ripple. Is Ether a security?
So, Bob, I'm not going to comment on specific crypto assets and whether they are a security or not a security.
What did you just say? Mr. Clayton, did you just say to Mr. Pisani that you're not going to comment on specific cryptocurrency assets? You realize just a few minutes before you gave that answer, you commented specifically on a cryptocurrency asset. You literally said Bitcoin is not a security. And then we just fast forward a couple minutes in the interview and you're asked, well, what about Ether? What about XRP? And your answer is, we don't comment on specific cryptocurrencies.
You on drugs?
The judge just asked you if you were on drugs, but I think I might know the answer. Because it's either you're on drugs when you're answering these questions, or maybe you own Bitcoin. And that's why you comment on Bitcoin. And that's why you give clarity for Bitcoin. Maybe you own Bitcoin, but while you were chairman of the SEC, you noticed that XRP's faster. XRP can handle 1,000 or more transactions per second instead of 7. And it's much cheaper. But I digress. Now, Mr. Clayton, isn't it a fact that in this same interview, you were asked questions about the company Ripple, and you were asked questions about the digital asset XRP, weren't you? Let's play the clip.
But you understand there are lawsuits, I'm sure you know right now, for example, over Ripple, about whether it is or is not actually a security. That's partly one of the issues here. And obviously, how the SEC feels is very important.
No, we are not going to do any violence to the traditional definition of a security, which has worked well for a long time, and I believe will continue to work well.
Is it possible the SEC might say these were securities at one time and no longer are because they're not centrally controlled, for example?
Look, that's a question that is out there, and will be answered in the specific facts and circumstances. But we've been doing this a long time, and there's no need to change our fundamental approach.
Mr. Clayton, you don't see any need whatsoever changing or modifying or adopting different rules or regulations related to very innovative systems and technology such as blockchain technology and digital assets. You don't see any need to distinguish between orange groves and digital currency, right? No difference between payphones and blockchain technology.
We've been doing this for a long time.
Mr. Clayton, I have to ask you, is the reason that you keep answering the question, we've been doing this a long time, if it's a security well regulated, we've been doing this a long time, is the reason you always go back to that answer? Because as you sit here today, you wouldn't know a security if you were sitting on it and it bit you in your ass.
You will not use that kind of language in my court.
I know, Your Honor. I'll withdraw the question. Mr. Clayton, in the interview with Bob Pisani, you stated that you're not going to make any comments on specific cryptocurrency assets. Do you remember that? Well, I want to bring your attention to a different interview that was done after the CNBC interview. And this interview was with Glenn Hutchinson. In that interview, you agree that Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities and that they have been provided with clarity. Do you remember that interview? Are you aware that XRP came up again? Let's play the tape.
And so the general guidance has come out of the SEC that Bitcoin in its quote unquote present state and Ether in its quote unquote present state are not operating as securities because they seem to be without central third parties and highly decentralized networks. The issue of the moment is, of course, what is XRP? Runs on the Ripple network. There are a lot of people in this audience who would like to know, but I think it's I know from longstanding practice, the SEC does not talk about matters that are in front of them at the moment. So I'm not going to ask you that because I know you won't give me an answer. And it's not just you; it's all your predecessors wouldn't give me the answer either. I get it. Don't worry.
I'm no better than they are.
But what's the process by which this is determined and the timing? When does the marketplace know the outcome to this really important question? Because as you know, Ripple right now is the second largest market cap token after Bitcoin.
I think I'll go back to what I said, is that we are open to people coming in to see us, engage with us, discuss their particular situation, and work through it with us. And some of the, I will tell you, some of these questions, require a lot of information in order to get to a definitive position.
Mr. Clayton, when you were asked this question, XRP was the second largest cryptocurrency behind Bitcoin. Ethereum had not overtaken XRP yet when you were asked that question. And what was your answer? I'm no better than the other ones. Are you serious? You call that leadership, Mr. Clayton? I'm no better than the other ones. Ha, ha, ha. Do you think it's funny, Mr. Clayton? Did you take your job as chairman of the SEC? Did you believe it was funny? Do you know that the mission statement, Mr. Clayton, says that you are to share information with companies so that people, investors, can make informed decisions when they're investing? That's actually mandated in the SEC mission statement. Are you aware of that, Mr. Clayton? Or are you just going to laugh that off? Did you laugh when you cost $15 billion in individual investor losses by filing this lawsuit, even though you were warned by Joseph Grunfest? Was that a laughing matter, Mr. Clayton? Let me ask you this, Mr. Clayton. If a company has questions and they're trying to do the right thing, they're trying to make sure they're compliant with all the rules and the regulations set down by the SEC. If that company comes to you and says, we need help figuring this thing out. What's a security? When is it a security? When does it transform into not a security? At what point from centralization to decentralization is a security versus a non-security? If a company has those kind of questions, what does the SEC say? What's its position? What should that company do? Let's play the tape.
One of the roles of the SEC has historically been to help people on a case-by-case basis with the assistance, as you've emphasized in the past, of lawyers and accountants and other subject matter experts who are their representatives. So talk through what the process is in the SEC for people who want to come to you and either get advisory opinions or get guidance or actually register offerings.
Look, we are happy to engage with people in this space, in our Division of Corporation Finance, Division of Investment Management, and trading and markets on all of these issues. Bill Hinman, who you mentioned before, runs our Division of Corporation Finance. We have Val Panik. If people have questions, they or their lawyers can come to us.
Mr. Clayton, is that a sick joke of yours? Isn't it true, sir, that Ripple came to the SEC and begged for clarity? Isn't it true, sir, that you would go on conferences and you'd be present when the CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, was present at these conferences and people in the audience would beg you for clarity? Isn't it true, Mr. Clayton, that Senator Tom Cotton wrote you not once, but twice, one in 2018 and one in 2020, asking the SEC for clarity as it related to digital assets, including XRP? Isn't it true, Mr. Clayton, that congressmen signed letters asking you for clarity as it related to XRP? Isn't it true, Mr. Clayton, that National Security Advisor Radcliffe wrote to you asking you for clarity as it related to XRP? But you're going to get up here and say, we'll talk to you. Come talk to the SEC. Come ask us questions. That's your testimony under oath? And when all these people asked you for clarity and asked you about XRP, what was your answer?
If it's a security, we're regulating it.
Mr. Clayton, isn't it true that everywhere you went, every interview you gave from 2017 until 2020 for 3 long years. Every time you went somewhere, you were asked questions about XRP. You attended fintech conferences where Brad Garlinghouse was speaking after you. Do you remember those conferences? Whether it was an interview at Bloomberg or CNBC or Fox News, whether it was a Economic Club in New York conference or a FinTech 2019 conference, everywhere you went, one question always came up. And that question, sir, was, when will the SEC provide clarity for XRP in the same manner that they gave clarity for Bitcoin and Ethereum? Roll the tape.
Hi, Tim Griffin, avid XRP investor. And you know that Brad's up next, so I'm going to ask this question for him. I think it's a softball. I think it's an easy question, but we'll see. You might slap me later. Will the SEC rule on XRP, and when, if they will?
Wow. So both.
You got softballs.
So look. We don't comment on specific enforcement matters or whether matters are under review or dialogue. It would be inappropriate to do so. What I will say is on enforcement matters generally, there are a number of factors that go into the assessment of any remedial action. One of the matters that you think about is how much of the conduct occurred inside or outside of the United States, investor loss, those types of things. But I can't comment in terms of any particular product. I'm just not in a position to comment. But I appreciate the sentiment underlying your question, which is understood.
Well,
Mr. Clayton, isn't it true that a former chief of the SEC by the name of Joseph Grunfest sent you a letter informing you and warning you not to file the case against Ripple and XRP, and that if you did so, it would cost multiple billions of dollars in losses to innocent investors with no connection to Ripple? He warned you that in the entire history of the SEC, there was never a case where the mere filing of the lawsuit would cost unprecedented billions of dollars in losses. He told you that there was no difference between Ethereum and XRP. And until the SEC could make that distinction, they should not treat XRP any different. He warned you and told you that you should not file the case without the Biden administration coming in less than 30 days. And you yet ignored all of those warnings. And you filed the case against XRP. What do you have to say for yourself, sir?
If it's a security, we're regulating it.
If it's a security, we're regulating it. If it's a security, we're regulating it.
If it's a security, we're regulating it.